Hi, too. Dre here. What I want to talk about today is this. Ever since I was a kid and I heard my first Mercedes diesel, I always wondered, why did they sound the way they sound? At first I thought it was because they were smaller than just say like the Oldsmobile 350 diesel. But I heard some other four-cylinder diesels, like the Volkswagen for instance, and they didn't sound like the Mercedes. And I always wondered, why did Mercedes sound a certain way? Okay, I knew I was gonna forget this guy's name, but I'm gonna describe him and you guys are gonna know who I'm talking about. He's the white guy with the long name. He has a channel where he does nothing but works on Mercedes. And he wears a Mercedes like mechanic jacket or whatever. So you should know who I'm talking about. Anyway, he was explaining how a Mercedes injector worked. And I assume that with mechanical fuel injection, with mechanical diesel injection, I assume that the injector squirted one squirt of diesel fuel into the engine. That's what I assume. That's the way it worked. Well, apparently with Mercedes, in some of their diesel, or pretty much, I think all of them, I'm not exactly sure, but the one he was working on anyway, he showed how the injector fired 2 squirts of diesel fuel into the engine. And I know from reading that that's the reason why diesels run quieter now, make more power, and run a lot cleaner, because they don't inject one squirt of diesel fuel. They inject multiple squirts of diesel fuel. Now, some people would think that how can a diesel burn less fuel if it's squirting multiple squirts of diesel fuel? Well, it's not that it's squirting more fuel into the engine. It breaks down what it squirts. Here's a good example. Just say like a normal diesel might squirt 1 squirt, but that squirt will have 5 drops of diesel fuel. Just give an example. Mercedes will break it down, where it's just say like the first squirt might be 2 drops and the second squirt might be 3 drops. Well, or it might be the first squirt is 2.5 drops and the second squirt is 2.5 drops. I don't know exactly. I'm just giving an example of what I mean by multiple squirts. Well, apparently when you squirt fuel into an engine, instead of shooting one large amount, break it down, the engine runs quieter, runs smoother, and cleaner. That's also explained why Mercedes sounds so much different than other diesel engines. But it wasn't until I watched this guy's channel that I realized this. No one ever told me that. I assumed that only common rail type diesel could squirt multiple squirts of diesel fuel. So I was really happy that that was finally explained to me. And I love it when I learn new things about cars or whatever. But that explains it. And that's really all I wanted to talk about. Have I driven a Mercedes diesel? Parking lot. I never drove one on the street. I used to work at a car wash. I drove a few of them on the parking lot. But I never drove one. Well, no, that's a lie. I rented a Sprinter. And I'm glad I rented this Sprinter, even though it cost me like $60 for one day. But yeah, I rented a Sprinter van. I want to say it was a 2014. It may have been older than that. I don't remember. But it was a 3-liter. It's the one that's got the 3-liter V6. Back when they had 145 horsepower, 245 pound-feet of torque. It was a big, tall, long van. And honestly, it was not slow. I mean, it wasn't lightning fast, but it had adequate power. I had no problem getting on the expressway. I think the top speed was 75 miles per hour, but that was governed. It wasn't red line. The thing had, even though it only had 245 pound-feet of torque, there was enough torque to power brake and spin the rear wheels. I think it spin both rear wheels, I think. But it did spin at least one. I think it spin both. But I was really impressed with the amount of power that the thing made. You know, for the, you know, I assume 145 horsepower, it wasn't gonna be all that exciting, but it was. And I mean, you know, before they came out with the 3-liter V6, I had seen the original ones, the first ones that came out with the 2.7 inline 5-cylinder. I've seen several of those hauling butt down the highway, and I never saw one driving slow. I never saw one holding up traffic. Every time I saw one, it was either keeping up with traffic or speeding. So I sort of kind of knew that they seemed to have some power. But I would like to drive another one, because shortly after that one I drove, they upped the power to 188 with 325 pound-feet of torque. So I'm quite sure it's a lot faster now. The only thing I disliked about it was when it shifted from first to second gear, it was kind of a long pause. And I think I'm not exactly sure, but I think I know why it did that. It does that. The reason, I think it shifts to second gear and it locks up the torque converter in the same little shift. I believe that's what it does, and I believe that's the reason why it has that long pause. Not exactly sure, but I believe that's what's going on. It's shifting to second gear and locking up the torque converter at the same time. But what gave me that conclusion, I can't really remember. But I think that's what's going on. I have to drive another one to find out for sure. But anyway, this is Dre. I just thought I'd let you guys know what's going on that subject. I felt like making a video. I've been meaning to make a video about this some time ago. But anyway, that's all I got to talk about. This is Dre. Y'all have a good day. Bye.